Hi there. Today I want to talk about another way of classifying each of the companies that we have in the UK economy. And one way to do that is to talk about each of the different activities that companies will perform. And that will be then under the name sectors. And in fact, we're talking about three different sectors: the primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector. First of all, the primary sector. In the primary sector, you have to think of all of those things. How can we exploit all of the natural resources that there are out there? So everything to do with agriculture, mining, fishing, quarrying, forestry and all that type of stuff. All of that falls under the primary sector. By the way, oil extraction will also be in the primary sector. If you are producing a good, a physical product, at that moment in time you are in the manufacturing sector, and that will fall under the secondary sector. Construction is also there, manufacturing, engineering, but also the creation of gas and electricity, all of that will be in the secondary sector. Of course, if you're only providing a service, at that moment in time, your business will be in the tertiary sector. And that can be retail, transport, leisure, finance, IT services, health, education, and so on and so forth. All of these are in the retail sector and in the tertiary sector, of course. Now, if we look at what that means for the UK economy across the board, currently what we have is the primary sector is worth around about 5% of the UK economy. Of course, we still have agriculture there, but things like, for instance, oil extraction is certainly in decline. And all the way back in the 1960s, primary sector was worth around about 10% of the British economy, but that has now fallen to 5%. The secondary sector, by the way, in 1964 was worth around 40% of the British economy. Now it has dropped to 20%. And hence, what we see is a deindustrialization, i.e. a decline of manufacturing in the UK economy. And in fact, there are still discussions going on within the UK Parliament, all to do with should we revive our British economy or British manufacturing in order to rebalance the British economy overall. And by the way, the secondary sector today is worth around 20% of the UK GDP of the UK economy. The tertiary sector back in the 1960s was around about 50% of the British economy, and that has now grown to around 70-75% of the British economy. And of course, one of the sectors that people always look out for when you're looking at the GDP figures and all that kind of stuff is how is retail performing, because retail is a very, very important sector for the British economy, as well in the high street, of course, as e-commerce and all kinds of, which of course all falls under the retail sector. So deindustrialization definitely has happened, and of course you can also see that in other Western countries where a lot of industrial companies, manufacturing companies have moved out to places like Eastern Europe, China, India and all kinds of stuff in order to create a manufacturing base over there, and typically their manufacturing industries are in decline in most of the Western world. The other thing that you also need to be aware of is that all of these sectors, all of these companies are interdependent of each other, which means that, of course, even if you're working in the tertiary sector, you will still be dependent on people in the manufacturing sector, and of course people or companies working in the primary sector, in order to make sure that you still can do your business and perform your particular service or produce your particular good. The last thing that you need to be aware of is that, of course, there are companies out there, some of them very, very large, the ones like Shell and BP, which have literally activities right across all of those three sectors. So for instance, in the case of BP, they do a lot of oil exploration. That will be in the primary sector. Part of that oil will be taken to the refinery, and there, of course, they perform some manufacturing. They will refine the oil, and ultimately that oil can be taken then to the forecourts and the petrol stations, where consumers will come and of course fill up their cars, and that will be then part of the retail sector. Now that's an example of a big company. Now in some cases, of course, you can also have a small company. Let's say we have a small farm with livestock. Of course, they are in the primary sector. They will have some cows, which will produce milk. That milk, part of that milk, for instance, we can use that to manufacture cheese and butter and all type of stuff. And then, if we then also have our own farm shop, at that moment in time, we can retail all of those products also to the general public, and therefore that farm will also then be having activities in the tertiary sector right across all of those different sectors. I hope this makes sense, and I'll see you later.